All right, I am calling the Village of Cross Plains Finance Advisory Enhancement Committee, April 3rd, 2024. Roll call, please.
Deb Cutler.
Here.
Tim Hillebrand.
Here.
Jed Henry.
Here.
John Brandt. Michael Polmakowski. Jay Langfeld.
Here. We don't have anybody on the computer then?
No.
Okay. Public comment is an opportunity for anyone to address the finance committee. Please, time limit of 3 minutes. While the finance advisory and enhancement encourages input from residents, may not discuss or act on any issue noticed on anybody, so we'll move right to reports. The number one, committee chairperson. The only thing just want to remind people is there's something called a walking forum, and that's where if you have a forum and people discuss, we still need to post that as an open meeting. So exchanging emails and stuff, we really shouldn't. You want to send out information to everybody on something, that's fine, but do blind copy, that way people can get everything. And the other kicker that a lot of people don't, committees don't have to worry about, we do, is really our number for a forum. I mean, forum is 4. 3 votes kill a motion. Even as low as 3 people getting together and discussing the violation of. So we just have to be cautious. Sharing information is great, but you can't get on discussions here at the meeting. Committee members, anybody?
You said we would be discussing things like the direction of this committee. Is that gonna be with the items or?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it was your comment was tied to one of them. All right, finance director.
So as you all know, yesterday was the election. This isn't really finance, it's more my clerk. All of our incumbents were re-elected, including our judge, and then Cameron, Michael, and Cody for our trustees. I don't know where Michael is tonight.
I don't know either.
Maybe,
That's the whole celebration was so much.
yeah, his
Continue on.
Yeah.
his campaign party.
Yeah.
Then we're working on wrapping up the audit for the village. We have our exit conference Friday. I've seen a few pages of the audit draft. They haven't sent over the full version, but it looks like the village did good last year. We had a lot of expenditure line items where we had savings for various reasons like turnover or things we didn't have to purchase or not. And then we had a lot more interest income because interest rates were high. So we had quite a bit more revenue than choose. I think that was all good. I think that's
And
all.
when we get a final one, we'll put that on this. We'll look at it. All right, we'll go right to general business. Number 1, discussion and possible 2024 finance advisory enhancement committee minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion. Did we really meet on the 21st?
Yes, because you wanted it before the village board meeting.
Oh, gotcha, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So that was the March
That
meeting.
was the March meeting.
Okay, good. I totally forgot about them. Really? That seems a little.
It was nice
late.
having like a 6-week kind
Yeah, okay, very good. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed, same. So move. Right, number 2, discussion and possible action regarding review of purchasing policy bid tabulation. You want to take this?
Sure. So was that last year or the year before this committee looked at our purchasing policy? I think it was just last year. So we made some changes to that, and one of them was creating this form. And so then when department heads purchase something that falls under our purchasing policy, they have to just kind of show proof, I guess, that they either use the state rate or they got the 3 quotes. Or, if it was like a special one-off item that they have to have, just one company makes it or offers it. Another reason. So anyway, I looked through, I ran a report for all the checks that we did from January 1 through whatever day, March 27th. And combed through it, looked at all the things that I thought qualified and just checked, and Jerry had the only two. So the one was purchasing like the road salt. And he did confirm that is a state bid item. And then the other one, we're in the mixer volume project is a sewer utility project. So this is actually a project that was budgeted 2 or 3 years ago. What's this, 2021, Jerry said. So the bidding for that project was done by our engineers, Town and Country. So I think they did actually look at multiple vendors, or I'm not sure exactly what they did, but Jerry did say that Town and Country took care of that part of the project. So this kind of falls under the policy in this form, but anyway, the vendor was selected a couple years ago, but just because of timing and materials or whatnot, just is now starting. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look over any of these other expenses, if they have questions on anything. Anything they want to ask questions about?
Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the back.
Yeah, either I didn't have in my past.
Yeah, if you pull up the,
Why do we pay like Lake Ridge Bank for so many things?
So all of our credit cards, like each department
Oh,
has a
that's
credit
how
card,
we
it's through
use-
Lake Ridge Bank.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so when
was
we're paying
just-
our credit card bill,
Yeah,
it's just, yeah,
instead of it's
like
I
being
was just
Visa or
like,
something,
why
yeah.
are we our vendor?
Yep.
There was nothing on it that, jumped up me huge, oh my god,
Those are all purchases over $10,000.
no, that's just.
This is every,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Those
Try
are
to
just,
check.
yeah,
Yep.
that's what I'm saying, it's gonna be okay. Well,
Fire extinguisher stuff.
Yeah.
That was in
Yeah.
there.
yeah, so that's why, yeah. So when Bobby's done, then we can. You're right, this was brought up. Or the big ones for the bids, but what she did is just copied everything from January 1st to the 27th, and then pulled out the items that. Should have had a bid sheet.
Okay.
And that's what she's doing, but these are all there and it's all posted.
Yeah. Yeah.
did you get any pushback from any of the staff of using the bid sheet?
no,
or
I just
did-
reminded them that, we need to be following this and that our committee is gonna be monitoring it, and so I think they're okay,
So far, you just had those two.
Yeah, so the first quarter, we generally don't do many of our big projects or big purchases. Not a whole lot. Definitely second and third quarter, I think are.
Once construction seasons.
Yes.
Spring has been put on hold.
Do you wanna bring up your,
I'm sure
Yeah.
you're.
thing on, fire extinguishers that bills on?
Notice on the bills and things on the agenda, so. But we paid, $430 in this. Our war people and uniform people, whatever, they must now expand it out. First of all, maybe done with fire extinguishers, but library, which is a separate entity, would bill for $400. And so it's not up there, and it just goes up the library. There's a lot more involved in this, and she probably just 3 fire extinguishers. You have 3 fire extinguishers, you have no. And she explained that she too is. better solution. Boom had to be replaced apparently. So the bill ended up coming in for $430. So then I asked the chief of the EMS what we pay Jeff Tiger when they come and do their annual inspections. We did $91 for AFAR. There is a service charge at Jefferson of $50, just a charge on it does for 126. $5 fuel charge for Jefferson. Break it down further down the rest, but I think last fall I saw it again. I think we had a bill for $3,500. It has to be done yearly.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm wondering, with the 400, since they replaced two, does that include because there's a difference between replacing them and just.
Those are $45 a piece. Just, yeah, to those.
Yeah, no, but I'm trying to compare apples to apples.
Exactly. I guess my point of bringing it up is that we have a local, this is out of Madison, but I think their main plants out of.
North Carolina.
That we pay there.
I'm just wondering, look at things and kind of goes with where the committee going in the next year. And these topics that when we spot something that's obvious to one or the other, like do the Adobe thing.
Yeah.
We talked earlier, I would have done it on that.
Yeah.
This is kind of my background. That's a lot of money for.
I think it's great to do that. I think that is exactly what we should do. Now, we can't tell the library who to do, but I think what we do is we let Elizabeth know.
Here's another vendor.
Here's another vendor and here's our experience with them. You should probably get bids and see.
Actually, if I'm reading this correctly, and Bobby can correct me if I'm wrong, because I use Cintas. And it looks like that's your account number, the 636-525. Would I be reading that right?
I'm
Sorry.
somewhere else.
What page are you?
28 of the PDF. And as I said, I use Cintas a lot. This might just be a simple phone call because, you know, things change. And they might, like you were talking about with the phones, they might still have things set up. Or say the library has 8 versus 4, and sometimes I'm literally doing this at work with.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think it's something I think the idea.
PDF.
I think the idea is we should let Elizabeth know, and then she can take a look at that and.
Well, even here, there's fire extinguisher inspection.
Yeah, I think it's,
That's what that's what I. Okay.
I think it's on.
Is that sure? No, I know it says that.
And is it just the fire extinguishers or are they also doing fire suppression?
Well, then we don't have fire suppression in the shop except for maybe one small spot. I'm just wondering, do they do our cleaning also?
Do we got a separate?
They're separate bills. It's actually a separate vendor.
Oh, it is, okay.
It's Cintas, but one's Cintas Fire and one's Cintas.
Oh, we
Yeah.
definitely need, I agree, that is clearly
Yeah.
what we should be doing.
Fire extinguisher testing for looks like the 670, I think is the sewer, that's $422. Annual fire, I mean.
So that's for 30 fire extinguishers.
Yeah.
Is that in the shop?
Yeah. They're not.
Oh.
Tim, what do they do? Do they just come through and check the expiration dates? Do they?
Well, they do it, they chart out, they make sure they're not
Yeah, you
leaking.
make that a little bit.
No, at least when they did it for us, they look at them, if it's old, they tell you it's old, and if you tell them part of it, replace it, then they put a new one in. The city of Madison, we take big old down to Jefferson. And they fill them and then we replace them, so they're just going through,
It's a little farmer thing.
$12.50.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
Fire department can, I mean, one of the interesting things to do, you can figure out why we switched to that, like that, why we went away from Jefferson Fire and see. Jefferson Fire will put it out for bid, but.
I mean, so Jefferson Fire is ones for the fire department, or does the fire department actually use their own?
No, he can't, it's.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, it has to be a service and it might be based off of your insurance company and what they want.
Well, it's state law for one,
That it has
Yeah,
to be
that-
done.
that they have to be checked every year and replaced if they're in no, you know, if they're no.
Yeah,
So what was the Jefferson per unit charge?
That comes £5 once annual maintenance. It was $5 or
45.
unit price is $4.50, so we did eight on it, and that's still eight.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, so
like,
just-
it looks like some of the valves were screwed up on here. The inspection itself is
Yeah.
reasonably priced. I would ask what the heck a 6-year maintenance is, and honestly, as I said, I would start with a phone call to Cintas.
You know, or the service charge, does Jefferson have a service?
Well, I think it's something, that's exactly what we wanna do, but now we send it to the department heads and
I would,
have them look at it.
and they're, okay, can you show me another one? Cause the way you got it listed on here, to me, it looks like you have one account number and then they just go to all those locations.
So you have the library.
Yeah, so I think it's, yeah. I'll ask them what their contract looks like.
Alright, so this is for this building.
Go to the top.
That being the other way?
The top being where
Like-
it says Cintas and bill to and invoice number, location, that's my number. Account number. And if you could switch to Jerry's, cause it looks like your account number is 04666.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. It's like-
Yeah, it's all on one account. So my guess is the count needs to be reviewed, so what I would do first is go into all these buildings. Count. And verify how many fire extinguishers are there, that would. Good place to start the conversation of, we don't need
Right,
all
and so
these.
then like the truck garage, I don't know if that actually includes like the well houses and the sewer
Yeah.
plant.
Just literally go into, I mean, we don't have that many buildings. In Cross Plains to go look in and just having an accounting of how many fire extinguishers are in each building is probably a good thing to review every once in a while. And then call Cintas and make sure that everything is set up correctly.
I think it's worth that's a good idea, but I think it's worth review. What are we getting with, look at here, there's a 6-year maintenance, wouldn't maintenance include valve, what are we getting from it?
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%.
Somebody checked out this guy and now we're getting maintenance. What?
Right, and then the question is how many fire extinguishers do you have and what does your maintenance agreement look like? 'Cause somebody signed a maintenance agreement.
At some point.
Library, see.
It's not independent, it's just a different location under the account.
Oh, that one has the same 0666.
Yeah, 40666. What Cintas does, at least with me, is it's the same account number and how they identify the building. So like I have 3 of them. I have Camp Randall, Call Center, and University Ridge. So that's how they identify, because they're also going to different addresses and they need to tell
Right.
their people how to get there.
But I would go a step farther. Once we do that, I would then send something over to Jefferson and say, what would it cost for you to do all of
Yeah, and by collecting all the information.
it? Yeah, exactly. All right, I think that's a good thing. I think I think the step that should happen is, why don't we put this on the next staff agenda?
Okay.
Because it seems like it affects just about every department. Cause I know police have them down there and their SWAT company. Yeah. Also, I think it hits just about every department, so let's start with that and then we can kind of figure out how staff wants to work this through.
Don't we even have, and this, here, don't we even have this company? In the 2 bathrooms in the first floor here, and that's the building by somebody else.
The whole building is cleaned by someone else weekly. Cintas comes in once a month and does like a deep clean of the bathroom.
Well, very good for catching that. Asking those questions.
I was gonna say, are there any other ones you wanna look at, or we?
Yeah, Cintas is. At least from my perspective, I always like being local if I can. Because the problem I had with Cintas, at least with hood cleaning, is their hood cleaners are in Kenosha.
Uh.
And I don't care, I want my hood cleaning when I want my hood cleaning, I don't care if you have to drive 90 minutes, and that's the problem with national versus local is. You
No, that's
can
good.
really get a better deal.
They do with the uniforms, with the points and mats and all that, some
Yeah.
basic stuff.
The mat services,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe something.
Yeah.
So we did
Yeah,
just
yeah, I'm just saying,
re-sign a
I think it's-
contract for
it's one of
the
those things you just gotta look into and get educated on what it is, and like I say, let's say this is the year that we come and see if there is a better deal. I think that's totally. reasonable.
Yeah, if you're looking at uniforms and you wanna do a comparison, Alsco is another provider. They do all our chef codes, uniforms and stuff.
I think we did just re-sign our contracts. For uniforms and,
That's another thing down the road.
Yeah. But just a list of when are those contracts expire is always a good thing to have on hand, cause then you can, forecasting the budget, you can decide.
All right, do we really, I don't think we need to take any action.
I had a question, can we look up a bill, do you have,
yeah,
Or- did you want to see what that Benetton bill was for 2017?
Yeah, there's another one that was, we have a fuel stations over 24/7 that does diesel. And get rid of that.
I think it's just like bulk,
Page-
it's bulk stuff that they keep on site, like if we have a tank over at the,
What's it used?
Well, the
The
deep
trucks.
one, we just put 300 gallons into the generator at the well. That's a diesel. That was 300 gallons there, and I don't.
About 1,200, isn't it? About 4,000.
well, when do you wanna look at $2,700?
Yeah, it's on page 31.
I don't know how many of our trucks use it, and if we have a big tank down, I don't know how he does it, I thought that we just bought everything from Quick Trip.
No,
They don't
Mm-mm.
have these or the.
Oh, yeah, they have diesel.
they do, yeah, no, but all of our,
They don't have ethanol free, which is.
Oh, that could be, I think why we buy it as co-op, because it's not used for a vehicle, you don't pay the sales. So you save the. Cents per gallon.
The Quick Trip would do that.
Oh, they would?
Oh, yeah, they do that, I mean, that's when we push to get, putting fuel on the Visa card, because we're paying state and federal. And the EMS, we have a card, you sign a form every year with Quick Trip saying. Taxes.
yeah, yep, we have that, yeah.
Well, that's tax exempt, I'm talking about diesel in itself, if it's not being used,
And off-road diesel,
huh?
like off-road diesel.
Yeah, I guess that's what they call it. You don't pay sales.
You're not for the road costs.
Yeah,
It's not going into vehicle, so it's not wearing on.
right, and farmers
for, like,
do that all the
equipment.
time. With
You
the
know, for our
tractors.
skid steers.
What do we have? Village that doesn't travel.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is tank that's at the well. And I don't
Well,
know,
this bill comes almost every other month.
oh,
Yeah, I don't know what
well, we'll have to ask.
ULS. Master or 70 gallons.
Oh, I'll bet it, there's the leaf, vacuum probably goes on diesel.
It's probably just more convenient for them to fill up at the shop every day than to go to Quick Trip and go, cause they gotta go inside. Like,
Oh, yeah, cause they can't, but how do they get 300 gallons
So
to
they.
the shop, is that?
They must have a delivery.
yeah, there's like tanks at the shop and they'd come and deliver and fill the tanks.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I think a lot of this is,
Yeah, and like I say, City of Madison does it for gas and diesel.
We don't have, Police, to my knowledge, doesn't have any buried tanks, put fuel into draw a pump.
I don't think so.
They have
I
a
don't-
portable one that's a sewer plant. Now, that's not, it's off-road fuel, that, maybe it's a special blend, we can buy for whatever.
I'm
reason.
not the person to ask.
Yeah, I understand. That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to talk about here. We sidestep the issue. The issue is, why are we buying fuel from the co-op? The correct answer that we have a storage tank in the sewer plant and we use it for
Generators or,
whatever.
Well, you're saying there's tanks that stop them then.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's at the sewer plant and I just assume it's the shop.
You're toting the leaf picker upper behind.
I'm just trying to come up with where we would use diesel that's not on the road.
Right, and I'm just trying to explain, there's a lot of why I brought it up, where I got up and there's.
Well, I'm not even sure that this is diesel, I mean,
Oh.
if ULSD is unleaded field master, that could be what they're putting in the leaf chipper and what they're putting in the Bobcat, so they don't have to drive the Bobcat to Quick Trip, fill it up there, and then they just drive, they just use the Bobcat.
Why don't we just ask, Jerry, on what is that used for?
Yeah, and what they are, they're diesel.
When I Google it, Cenex says it's winterized premium diesel.
That's what the. field master-
Maybe, what you're gonna have.
That's what the field master-
USLD Fieldmaster, that was.
Well-
That's accurate, that's.
And again, like, are these comparable to Quick Trips? I mean, maybe we get a,
Exactly.
cheaper.
I've been Googling and I can't see where Quick Trip delivers, which might be the.
Yeah.
no, I doubt they do.
Right, which is, I bet Middleton Co-op, since they're
Yeah.
a cooperative.
With
will
farmers.
Yeah.
deliver.
Yeah. So it's just a convenience.
So
okay, I mean,
we'll confirm and ask Jerry, that's not a big deal.
Sells the diesel trucks that come in that are out there in the world, like, and those are fire trucks, may not do the blend, but he need things.
Yeah.
But it just clarifies why we have two different sources and why it's on a regular basis. Yeah, but this bill may come 1,200 gallons, may come, what was it, 3,000 gallons, is it? 12 ounce?
No,
300. May come.
and we, yeah,
it looks like every couple. Well, in the summer, maybe it's often.
Or maybe there's something at the plant.
yeah, we can ask, that's a simple question. Yeah. All right, anything else?
And find out, like you were talking about. That's.
I think that's, usually it's the companies that it's like, Quick Trip will do it for you, you try, only I'm sure Milton. President Trump, that's where we go through. As long as you do the paperwork, they're usually all involved.
Yeah, I know we have to every year fill out something for Quick Trip.
And it can't be that much, because if you.
Plus, we
go
get a
to
dividend
gas
check from the co-op.
Spring Green and fill diesel. They always ask you, is that for a vehicle or off-road, and I say it's off. Takes that.
We get a patronage dividend from the co-op. You know, get some
Alright.
money back.
Anything else?
So that's right.
Okay,
All right. So why don't we start throwing that, so from the 27th to our next meeting, throw that in and we can put
every month?
yeah, just like we do for the board. Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Just basically you could copy the board one. Roll it days after the board. But you don't have to do the. Could be a whole. Whatever, I don't think I really have, yeah, I'm trying to keep it so there's not a lot of extra. Just use the one. All right, number 3, discussion and possible action regarding Cross Plains area EMS. That's the one that Deb had some questions, I will answer them. The reason why we have not done any work on this, and I thought I kind of wondered at the meeting, is the board sent over recommendations to EMS district on what the board would like to see changes to the structure of it. And that was a conceptual part of it. So there was no sense in putting work into it until we know exactly where we're going. So there's a meeting next week with the EMS district. I am meeting with the town of Berry to go on April 15th. After those meetings, we'll have a better idea of where we're going, because if they don't agree with that, then we're gonna kind of change course, and we'll be pulling numbers on basically looking to be independent. That's very different than what the proposal is out there in numbers. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing all the numbers on this option when it's not even gonna be a possibility. So to answer your question, it's just, we just have to wait. And you're right, all these questions would have to be answered once we have basically an option that we're going to look into. Then we will then answer your questions by the us and what possibly out there. Bobby is aware of what the board suggested, and she brought up a lot of these same questions. And the answer is, we don't know right now, we just have to wait, see. But if the district doesn't want this option, and we look at this option, we'll have to redo all. So I just want people to be patient.
Actually, I don't think the numbers in some ways will change that much, because we are. If, say, Bobby takes over the payroll, we already know, or we can figure out what that costs. But the question is even though we're providing these two routes, knowing how it will hit our pocketbook, I think is important when you go into a discussion, because you might not be able to afford option two to become independent if we lost, 40% of the revenue that goes towards the EMS. So it would give you a stronger, I would think, negotiating position if you knew what the village could handle financially before walking in and trying to change things and risking the income that comes in from the other communities.
We're not risking any.
They
Right.
can back out just as much as we can, so.
Well, certainly they can, but, they certainly can. They can back out, but that again, we have time, because the agreement, you have to give notice by December 1st of 2020. There's some time here. I just don't want to spend a whole lot of time on putting up numbers that will change. They will change. Huge difference between option one and option two is probably easily $250,000. And you're right, that is the numbers we will be calculating. There's no reason to do this, because if they get agreement with option one, then basically all of that stays the same, but we do have the workload and some of the other things to address. Absolutely, and to figure out how it would actually. But I just don't see any purpose in doing that until this process is moved farther down the road.
Right, I understand that. I am just worried that if option two is the way we go, and then we discover with the deep dive afterwards that we cannot afford option two,
There's
then what happens?
Well, here's the thing, there's no doubt option two would require a referendum. There's absolutely no doubt on that. How much that referendum, don't know. The other thing you don't know is if we would break from here, we could get other partners. That's the other thing. I mean, there's so many variables, we'd be wasting, I feel we'd be wasting our time on doing things now. I think we have to wait for the process to work its way through and see. Because you're right, maybe town of Springfield says, no, we don't want to do this, we'll just go with Wanakee. Town of Berry says, we'll stick with you no matter what, we like this, we think this is what, I don't know how it's gonna shake out. So why do a lot of figuring of numbers when we don't know what the variables are. So I'm just asking, this will come back to us, but we just need to cement in a little bit more of where we're going.
So my other question was, why did this, before it got to the time of doing numbers, come to this committee? Because this is not a finance thing, that was a contract or thing. There was no numbers, so why was it here?
You're talking about looking at what other places
Yeah.
were doing, because it had a huge effect. They upped our cost by 86%, that threw us over the levy limit where we had to use funds that we would not have. That is numbers.
Right, that is numbers, but
Right, so,
digging into that document and comparing to other places on how they write the same document isn't numbers.
but it sure it is, because what that whole, I was hoping there was something out there that we could say, this is what they do, which would protect us in the future and not have those numbers. Some of it is preventive, so it was clearly, that whole thing was clearly tied to overall EMS services, which is a costly service. So sometimes you have to, just like with the tax, the wheel tax, we did numbers before we did it, but you know, the tax itself is a law. We looked at that, the pros and cons of it, that were not always tied to numbers, right?
And then the HR one, or do you need to wait?
We gotta wait for that to get to the next one. We'll do it. I just, so to answer all your questions are good. They need to be answered. They will be answered. It's just not the time to do it. Till we get more. Then we'll go all out at it. And you're absolutely right. It is very possible, option two, when we all put it together, the board will say, no, it's not worth the effort. That is very possible. But then on the other hand, they may say, let's go for it, and then we have to start doing the whole thing like all these other schools and villages. We have to sell it to the public that this is an important thing and this is what we need to do. But again, we can't do that until, we don't want to do that until we've got this
Okay.
through the process. And that I'm hoping will be done through May. Hopefully by the June meeting, we'll have some idea. Does anybody else have any questions on that at all?
I have a question. Now I know with their budgetary and with them hiring people, that they threw an increase in their budget toward us, but someone on, like, you're on that committee, did you know that was happening?
Sure did, and
You
I-
were there, you were hiring people and all that?
Oh, Tim was at some of them. I was totally opposed to it, and I voted no. And oh, don't even get me, there were things that were happening that I was able to stop at that meeting
Right,
because of.
right.
So, yeah, I don't think you can find anybody that attended any of those meetings that would say that I was for any.
That board decided to hire these people knowing what it would do to
Well,
the budget.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because you're only putting that much of a
Oh, you were at the one meeting, yeah. He
Well,
saw.
no, but that's what I'm asking. They were well aware of the consequences of what was gonna happen.
Well, here's the thing.
consequences didn't matter to them.
Yes.
It was good for the service part of it, but they're not, and that's the reason that we're having this discussion, because we don't have an equal vote based on the cost. And so when you only have to pay 15% of the cost, and that doesn't affect you that much, and that's why we've gotten to this position.
Right, and let me just, there's a couple things. Here's what was going on. One, I think the whole committee, when we hired the first person, was given somewhat misinformation on the effect that would have. Number two, which is totally them, is that they gave a very large raise in 1 year. And then the past chief also went to, I don't know if you want to call it a policy or her view of reducing volunteers and getting more LTEs, which really jacked up the LTE part of it. Now Holly, who's the current one, she, at least with my conversations with me, she's trying to reverse that, reduce the number of LTEs. And then there was clearly, in my opinion, poor management. I still can't figure out with all these LTEs, why we're paying overtime to. You would have thought you could have found another LTE than paying, but anyways, I don't know the inner workings. I think I'm very comfortable with them now because of my involvement in it, but those were the factors. If you look at LTE line item, a new full-time employee, and the raises were top 4 reasons why we had this.
Probably mostly comes down to the path of least resistance. Finding and retaining and keeping volunteers, part of the effort.
Well, yeah,
To just pay someone overtime, you don't have to call or figure out who else you reschedule, it's just, this person says they'll come in
and then.
I was a training cost as well, because I assume there's a whole lot of training.
Well, a lot of these come in with, they're already paramedics and LTEs.
and not many paramedics. You're just gonna get EMT basics and sometimes.
Well, no, why did he that?
No, you know, the problem that we have is that you don't understand happening or has happened in the last. The other intern chief, first chief left. That's a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff need to be cleaned up at the board. I see sometimes just want to deal with it because it's day to day. No, it's not. It's bigger than any big issue. Reason we have 27 or 36 LTEs is the second chief opened the door to anybody and their brother that you knew. We had people coming down. I was there when they were on call. The lady came from Stevens Point. She interviewed for a job that there was no open. Because one of our chief told her, come on down, we'll bring in this LTE. We have tons of them. That's good. And that's what the current chief was pushing down to get rid of the ones that aren't. And we saw some that she left and no longer respond. So the issue isn't the free for all, and we have issues now that need to be addressed at personnel. Got that. Yeah. I'll go into a lot of details that I just see being there, listening to people talk. It's tough. I think you let the current chief on her thing for a year. I hear we come and ready to handle on it. I think a lot of things that are going up to her, the deputy chief. For all that, I see emails coming out, open shifts, no overtime. Telling the people right up front. Telling people you have 1,200 hours, you're done till next year or 2 years. Right. So there's all those things that are taking place to get this budget under. The 4 employees they have were in place were and decided to hire.
No, we added one last.
Because of the overtime that she was getting.
Yeah, we added one. We went from 3 to 4 in 2022 or 2023.
So there's just a lot of stuff in 23 budget didn't have the money for that 4th person. And we took them on and then have an issue of now we're going to make it up budget and
Yeah, and another thing was, they were running. I had this discussion with both 2 chiefs, and now Holly finally has fixed that. Is they were letting people, even full-time people, kind of pick their own work. And I said, we got to have it solid where these are full-time employees. They should be able to. You should have a work schedule for a year. You know, shift works. You know, they're 1 on, 2 off, or whatever it is. That should be going, and then you fill in those gaps, because that was the big problem with the chief. If no one took a shift, they would have to work. So there was a lot of pressure on the chiefs that they were at work all day. But that's not a money thing. But it was the reason why we didn't hold on to chief.
So basically, it's a rebuilding year because we finally have a chief that has administrative skills who is trying to get
Wow.
other things.
That's a good point.
Well,
Well,
scheduling.
We need to give her the opportunity to figure,
First,
yeah.
so,
I think that what's to.
And she understands.
It's like being over.
25 years. She understands how the system works. Trying to get back to that. The paying overtime, you just sign for the schedule for people. You could have a new person and who has a paramedic student, overtime work to come and sit for 12 hours and just put the name on it. There's no control over the budgets one flying. But now, I don't know what the overtime budget is for. Was it
30,
60? And then
it's
she wanted to-
30,000. At 30,000.
I know, you saw that.
Yeah, so. Holly is doing a great job in trying to clean up some of the areas. There's areas that she does not have the skill set yet. And that's why we still need to give her, our chiefs still need to be practitioners. They're not administrators, so they don't have accounting, they don't have budgeting, they don't have HR. They are practitioners. They are medical practitioners. So Holly, for a long time now, has been spending a great deal of time cleaning up the WRS. Right? That is not what the chief should be. Right? These things that we're proposing would help that. Bobby does that every single day. She has the program. If I am telling you right now, if those employees would have been under the village, we would not have the criminal case going on. We may have even held on to some of the chiefs. And clearly, a huge amount of the time that the chiefs are spending on HR stuff would go away immediately.
You also had two chiefs. Only goal was to get their paramedic license and move on to higher.
Is that right?
Well, that's what Erica did. She came here, went to
Oh.
paramedic school on basically our time, went to Oregon because they're paramedic service. That's why she. Maybe she was something else.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more exciting.
The same way she came here, she went to paramedic school, took her time off, and I remember filling shifts because she passed or this or that.
Yeah.
Probably on our nickel, our dam, when is now left, when someone else be. We hired people, or hired people who know a lot of where they're gonna be in 5 years or. You're like, kind of police chief, there's no control, you know.
Yeah, I know.
But for the most part, it's, you've got a solid person, like I said, she's been here 25 years. A nurse, you know. You have somebody, I'm not sticking up for, I'm saying, if you look at, I went through 3 chiefs, because you use this as a stepping. Under the cops,
Well, it may be, but they,
you're right now, she's
the,
cleaning up.
the amount of time they put in, you know, Holly's problem. We got it, anyways, that's beyond what we're talking. That's kind of where we're at. We'll see what happens on this, and then we'll definitely get another look at it.
I was just gonna, Tim, do you think us now paying the chief more, will that keep someone or have them in that role to stay rather than it being a stepping stone?
Yeah. I think
That might help that.
Yeah. Is she not, I don't know what the cost is. Right?
I think it's up to.
Because I mean, Hazel's doing.
I just want, while Tim, that's,
Yeah.
I think with, the last chief, remember, she only stayed 10 months, you get her paramedic. I talked both with Erica and Tabitha. A big driving force was the time commitment that they had to be there all the time. Tabitha had to give up teaching at Madison College because she had to be on call. Erica had a brand new baby and there was demands there. So I think there's a combination, but it's clear that we need changes there, and that's what is being proposed. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the next step is, but this is a critical, high priority service. So it needs to run the best it can, and we need to protect ourselves, and we don't. So that's where we're at. on that. I don't think there needs to be any action. We'll answer all your questions and get another hit at it, but we just gotta let it go through the process. Yeah. All right, the next one is discussion and possible action regarding employee wage and benefit. And this will be, so that you saw my memo. And I think it's clearly, this is a numbered thing, right? I mean, there's no doubt that this is a number. So, what we need, as you saw in the memo, these have been the goals, and they're pretty subjective goals. I think they're goals, but they're subjective. So, I'll give you an example. I think we need to go to more objective. So in the last budget thing, we did have that. So part of that was we wanted our starting salaries to be 70 to 80% of the average of Middleton, Verona, and Mount Hope.
And Wonky, I think.
Oh, yeah, Wanakee four, yes. That is a very objective number. They went through, got those numbers, you added them up, divided by 4, you have this number, we carried it over, this is what we wanted our starting wages to be. I think that's fantastic. But now what I believe needs to happen is, we need to carry that through all of them. And I'll give you an example. Should our chief make the exact amount of money of the chief, Middleton? They're both cheap. They both have basically the same job. But in my opinion, there's clearly a difference. I mean, Middleton chief has probably 70 to 100 employees, dispatch center, processing evidence. While our chief doesn't have that, he has 6 employees. So is that a fair comparison? Do we say that our chief should make the same as Middleton? If not, where on that spectrum should our employees be? That's what I'm trying to get. So we know when we reach our goal, when people are comfortable in the salaries we're paying our staff, the staff feel that they're getting paid.
The way I look at it is that, okay, you have the 2 chiefs. The Middleton chief also probably has an administrator doing a chunk of his paperwork, and our chief does not.
Yes, we have other.
Administrative assistant.
I don't know the exact makeup of the police departments, but I am willing to bet there are people the Middleton chief delegates to that the Cross Plains chief does not get to delegate to because he only has those 6 people. That looks like to me a comparison of job duties, and that to me is an HR thing, not a money thing, because I can't, as a person with no experience, judge what is reasonable to ask a chief of police to do.
No, I'm not asking you to do, I'm looking for pay, which is
Right,
totally
but-
the money.
Yes,
Good
pay
question.
is the money thing, but pay is based off of what your job duties are. And if the job duty, I can't make a judgment on what the job duties of a police chief are. Because I don't know what they are. I
The
don't.
question she's asking is it similar workloads, even though there's not as many personnel here?
No, I understand what she's saying. What I'm trying to do is, what is a fair salary for our chief?
Is based off of what our chief does compared to other chiefs. You can't just, it's not just apples and apples.
Oh, no, I
It's
understand
apples
that.
and oranges, and without the knowledge of what makes those up, you can't just add a number to it. It has to be looked at with the job descriptions, which is
Agreed.
not a money thing. Our thing would be to look at how much this village can afford to spend on salaries, and more importantly, retraining people every time somebody uses us as a stepping stone to move to the next place.
So if we were given 500,000 we could afford to pay our people any salary we want. And that,
That would be great. But
really,
if we could pay everybody the salary they want, yeah, who wouldn't wanna pay their people more? But we can't decide what these salaries should be unless we have an understanding of what their job description is. I could probably make a good judgment on Bobby due to my experience at doing administrative stuff. And I know what in the administrative world is a reasonable request and is not a reasonable workload, but for a police chief, no.
no, but what if we listed all their responsibilities? Could you put a number to each one of those?
No, cause I don't know how many hours a day it takes to do officer friendly. What does that take? Which, if you guys didn't have officer friendly as a kid, it was coming to the schools. and-
Yeah, we have as they call us.
So how many hours does it take to prep for that? How many hours does it take to actually put on that program and then the follow-up with that program?
Well, I know the hours, but I'm still trying to figure out how that would convert to money. It
What-
takes me 2 hours to do this and I go do this. How does that affect how much we pay Officer Friendly?
Is there a chief administrative chief or a working?
I'm throwing. I'm
Ours is
throwing-
both, he responds to calls,
Right.
where the
that's-
Middleton chief does not respond to calls.
Right, so that's a difference between their two job descriptions.
Right,
So what,
And it was
so
a higher-
can you provide us with very, very detailed job descriptions? That shows this is everything that person does, so that we can try to figure out how they're. How to basically charge them basically piece rate, I guess, is the way.
okay, well, that's an idea. Now we're getting somewhere. That's an objective way of doing it.
But yeah, I can't make a judgment on what should and should not be.
No, I'm not
in the
asking.
job description, and as you could. All of us have had it, is the other 10% duties as. Required usually becomes 90% of your job, and you know.
If you're basing it on job description, that is an objective thing. We list
Yeah.
that and we put a value to it. Okay, so that's one. Anybody else have ideas on?
I mean, yeah, who does the hiring? I think in Middleton, they have a service that. Police chief or whoever puts out a position that goes on this website, if you're interested, on this website and fill the application, and at the end of the day, when the application is brought in. Somebody clarifies them all, they know the requirements, here's your stack of. Candidates that met the requirements. He also all does that, it's not back on.
No, I'm not looking at, I'm not looking to hire anybody. I'm trying to get,
You're missing my
okay, I'm missing it then, yeah.
point is, third-party vendor that does all hiring, real background stuff, submitted, here's the date. You didn't put in this 2 papers that you're supposed to, you don't qualify, you can't get it. Here's the qualified candidates, so this file of the candidates that met the requirements of the post. Does our chief do that when we hire somebody, or?
The police commission does.
Oh, we have a separate entity, and when we're talking about just job descriptions, you know.
Yeah, no,
we hire-
what I'm trying to do is, I'm not trying to get into the hiring process or anything. What I'm trying to do is every year,
Hiring is just one more thing that the city of Middleton Police Chief, and I could want to verify, this doesn't worry about. He said,
Okay.
here's the list.
Right,
no, I
I
understand.
understand he's done, and April 15th, he gets. The met that requirement, that's a
Right.
job duty he doesn't worry about, I'm not talking about hiring, it's a job duty he doesn't have to worry about except final applicants. Somehow, if we get 10 applicants here, 4 of them are missing what they're supposed to, I'm using this as an example.
Yeah.
Haven't met the requirements for the posting, then he doesn't have to worry about it. Doesn't deal with that. Nobody else totally does. So does our chief do that? And he doesn't, so when it comes to paying, what qualifies what he may get? Again,
Okay.
another task.
That's what Deb's point. I understand looking at job descriptions and trying to put a dollar to the tasks that they have. Is there another way? Does anybody else have any other ideas? Huh?
No, I think.
well, you also have to balance in the cost of living, cause like with the police chief or the EMS. As a citizen, I'd feel more comfortable with them living closer to Cross Plains than further, and with the cost of living in Cross Plains. It would be nice if, especially public facilities, because if they have to come plow the streets and they can't get to the plows to plow the streets. So we wanna make it so that they can have a wage, so that they can live in our community and be a part of it. So that would be another part of the equation, in my opinion.
Jed, do you have any ideas?
I mean, I think in general, you're just comparing similar communities and costs and getting into the weeds of all the different scenarios. That's the first thing. We're already doing that.
Well, we're doing it we did it for start, which made total sense. You know, because they feel that we were losing people to these other municipalities because we were so much lower than them. So that was what we tried to bring that up. And that's solid. I mean, I think it's a great thing. It made total sense. But what I'm trying to do is carry that over, so when we talk about everybody that's been here from 2 years to 40 years, we have some idea of when we've reached a reasonable salary. That's where I'm trying to get.
You'd be like a cap.
I'm not looking at where we feel comfortable.
Well, they just feel comfortable with what they have now. Right?
Oh, no, every employee thinks it.
Well, yeah, but I mean.
I mean, you just gotta take that. We all did that. I'm not naive enough on that. Of course, to me, affordability is one, right? So when there's so many dollars, where do those dollars go? And what employees are underpaid, what employees may be overpaid, whatever. How do you tell that? What are some of the mechanisms to do that? Because otherwise it's gonna be the same subjective goals and we'll never reach a goal.
Right, because the job descriptions are the same. I mean,
Well,
Yeah, the job descriptions stay the same.
isn't that what you're basing on? I mean, they leave because they don't get enough money. Nobody comes in and says, I would stay here, if you change line 3 and 7, and it's got this job.
Well-
I don't wanna do that.
oh no, I've done.
Yeah, I think I think that was the idea, was at the 80%, 70-80% is. There are other positives. I think someone who, public works person who works in Middleton probably is a little bit busier than maybe in Cross Plains. They probably have a lot more water breaks, if you're in that. I'm just throwing things.
And I'm just.
There's a difference. Middleton of a population of 30,000 is gonna have different demands of a village of 41.
And budget wise, when you have a commercial or industrial park, like the city of Middleton, the city. Wanakee, and these areas that can afford higher wages because they have.
Agreed.
Businesses, you have to, that's part of it too, like in what's here, I don't think any one of those public works employees have a different job description.
That's exactly right.
Well, they're all expected to plow snow or whatever.
Yep.
All expected to do.
Yep.
I mean, it comes down to, it's, I hate to say it, if you're not getting enough money, I don't know how that we can't really change.
Well, obviously, the ability to pay is a fact. I mean, I don't think we have to break that down, but I think because of that, because we don't have that, we have to have some good solid goals. We can justify where people are in the salary.
I think that comes to performance reviews, cause if you're doing, you have your job description if you're doing above and beyond, but one thing that is the same, no matter if you're working for Middleton or Cross Plains, is the cost of living will be the same, and.
So,
Yeah.
then, I mean, it's a two-way street, you can also look and say, well, where do you live? Rather than arena, so the cost of living is cheaper in Iowa County and in the village of Marina, so maybe you don't need to make as much money. Because if you want a cost of living wage before you live somewhere, well, let's do it. I mean,
I get what you're saying, and that's why that is difficult, that is difficult.
I think we only have 2 employees on that now. Actually,
I don't know where our employees are.
people living with this,
I think you're, there's just isn't a house.
Yeah, and is it,
Huh?
like, we put them in affordable housing.
Yeah, there you go. All right,
I just don't know how you compare apples to apples to those.
no, and that's why that is one way of doing it, and that's kind of what we did for that. But I'm just throwing that out, are there other ways? Are there other objective things that are easy to defend versus the subjective?
Didn't the county do a poll along this valley?
Yeah, they've done that, yeah.
I mean, it is not a.
That's using what Jed's process is. Look what other places are doing that are comparable, and we were in group 3 the last time, and I can't remember. It was, and of course, it's like everything else, some places were much higher, some places. That's what I'm saying, that is another one of looking, of looking at comparables and seeing and coming agreeing that, hey, we believe we kind of fit with Belleville and whatever, Mount Horeb or something, and then we adjust. That would be an objective. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, if it's being done by third parties,
Yeah,
why would we not adopt something?
that's,
Or, you know,
okay, now we're on the, now we're getting, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're not the ones calling the shots. It's not about personalities. It's about
right.
an overall independent agency. Did the whole county pay your taxes at a county rate? Then maybe that's not a bad starting point.
No, and then they sometimes, the county hooks into other counties and they have a state one. They group people through. That's not always as fair because Iowa County.
Yeah.
You know,
Counties would be-
yeah, they're not gonna be nearly as high. All right. Any other comments on this? I'll,
But do they include longevity schedules? I mean,
well, we're,
our longevity is like. Getting paid.
it,
We never had. County got rid of it, Middleton had it.
I know, but anyways, yes, it's something we have in there. We still, it's been incredible amount of work and we're still got one more piece to fit, then we're gonna need to have something. There'll be an adjustment, but I don't wanna talk about benefit, that's just a part of the raise thing to get somebody there. What I'm looking at is what the salary people should get, how we get to that salary, there's all kinds. And I'd rather not talk about that. Cause that just
That's
really,
separate.
yeah, that would be separate. The idea is, this is where we'd like to get people's salary. And then look at, this is how we. Yeah, maintain and,
So you would use that to get there? Or would you use that as the stepping stone? I would think the salary.
no, it's all together, I don't see them as separate. You know, we have a starting wage and then we want to make sure people continue and that. And if you looked at last year, I mean, we had some big raises too, I think there's some people that. Someone got as low as 3. So there was some adjustment last year, and there was the first part of the implementation on longevity. So those are there.
I mean, one of the things I would look at math wise for budgeting is, and it's a hard one to do, is make sure that every year. As long as the employee is satisfactory and you're continuing with them, that they get a cost of living increase that matches the cost of living increase, cause the 3% person. Basically got a wage cut because cost of living went up over 7,
So
so they.
I have no problem with that. But here's the thing that the deal has to be, if we're gonna do that, then you stick it. There was 8 years where inflation was around 2% and people were getting 3% raises.
So
And so you gotta go, if you're gonna, and that's a standard, I can,
Right, but if the, how about just using that as an example, a minimum of 3%, but if the cost of living is higher, you would get that. And that's not a merit-based raise, that's just
Well,
we want you to be able to eat.
So do you include longevity?
I think if a lot of people who are hourlies would be happy to stay with a place that isn't just going to give them a 10-cent raise every year and then make you say thank you for it. It's showing that you appreciate your employees and you want to make sure that they're having a decent lifestyle outside of.
longevity is intended to hold long-term employment. To hold employment. That's what it is. It is costly though. Like you said, a lot of places have given it up because of that. Same thing with COLA. You know, that's the. They kind of went away because inflation was under 2% for such a long period of time. Employees didn't think a 1.7% raise was fair. So what I'm saying is, if you use that as your standard, then that is an objective standard. And can live with that, but you gotta live with it when inflation is down then.
Thus,
You know what I'm saying?
you throw in the minimum and then
Well,
give the minimum, everybody deserves a minimum raise every year. It's not an unreasonable, it's a sick way of making sure you don't lose an employee. Because not only when you lose an employee, you have to train the next person, but every time you lose an employee, some knowledge is lost and cannot be recaptured without a whole lot of effort, if it ever is.
so then you would be looking, okay, now that's another one, that's an objective thing. You set a minimum wage for each year, and that's how it goes.
A minimum one, and either it's a minimum or the cost of living, whichever one is higher, so 3% or if this past year 7.5%. So that they know that they are being appreciated.
Well, that's
That
objective,
sounds
but I'm
right.
not going by.
Like, as much as I would love to give everyone, I don't.
No, but we're on the right track. We may not agree with that idea, but that is an objective
Right,
monetary goal. So
and
that's what those are the things I'm looking at, what Tim said, that's what I'm looking at, something that's solid, that's easy for us to understand.
Question for clarification, is it if mandatory percent increase? Or say 3%, but cost of living is 4%,
then
and employee X is getting a 1% longevity increase, that makes 4%.
I wouldn't necessarily do the longevity on top of that, I would, cause that.
Built into it.
Yeah, then you're basically ensuring your employees stay because they know they will have a minimum raise every year. And that in the tough years, that their employer is willing to do what it takes so that they're not taking the hit with the cost of living. Which,
And of course, this is all tied to.
right, and then on the flip side, I would hope that the department heads are doing their due diligence with tracking their employees. Making sure that it doesn't come to raise time and they say, well, we can't give you this raise because you haven't done this, this and this. And they never said that until it was raise time, and that it is a very communicated. Discussion of, you've been doing this, it's very well, so you keep the good employees, not just the people who are staying for the raise.
No, we have an evaluation, we got rid of the merit pay because. It takes a lot to tell one person, get the raise. Everybody got the 2% every year. It was just a 2%.
Oh, it's gonna take a lot to look at.
No, yeah,
But I think Wisconsin retirement's another one. So if it goes up where the employer has to pay more that year. I mean, it's all part of their wages that are coming out of taxpayer dollars, that should be included. If you're saying that we have to pay
And I think that's what we talked about at the last board meeting or the meeting before. I guess some places
Oh.
give the employee exactly how much they made. If you include benefits. Instead of just salary, you know, like your W-2, it also includes insurance and all of that. So it gives you, what was the term that they used? I've never heard of it. Is that what it was called? Total compensation. So we were thinking that was one of the steps we were going to
I
do.
mean, if we were all going on the marketplace and getting health insurance that way
Right.
versus.
No, it's what,
I think it said like, this is how much we paid for your health insurance.
yeah, so,
This is how much the village
Pays
pays wages
for
and
your-
benefits.
yeah.
People don't factor that in. Paycheck and
Right.
budget. So you at least then give them an understanding of, hey, look.
Thank you,
we're
yeah.
Paying a certain wage, but we're also paying this, and
Alright,
this.
here we're all gonna look at Bobby's on
And somebody.
Right.
stuff.
Okay, now if people aren't reading their pay stubs.
So down here at the bottom, it
Yeah.
says employer paid benefits, so it says, you know. I know it's really, small. Let me see if I can get.
Yeah, I ordered mine. So basically,
There's,
okay.
This
so
one, I'm making
Social
it bigger.
Security and Medicare is.
That's everybody.
That's everything, but,
you know, so down here, it tells me how much the village is paying for my health insurance,
correct,
WRS. Social
Yeah,
Security.
okay.
So you kind of on your piece that you're.
yeah,
Oh.
Compensation
Yes.
thing, it's already
Oh.
there,
Yeah.
it's already being told, and at the end of the year, you can add up all the amounts and be like, this is how much.
Oh, there's a year-to-date column.
also, you know, some of this, not to pick on Robbie, but it's her thing. She is doing her whole family, I do not know if she has a significant other.
It's just single or family, there's no single, yeah, it's all or none, I hate, everyone hates it.
Yeah, because that's the state system.
Yeah.
Well, that's just, no, that, trust me, I get that as well, but, so there's that question of, you know, is. If the other family member were using me and Nate. He can get insurance for one place, I can get insurance for another. It's her choice to bring her spouse or family on it, so, you know, these are all choices people make.
Right, but that's still, it doesn't change, it still shows what the village is paying for.
Right.
All right, I think we're getting somewhere here now, I think this is good.
And I think the university has.
There's Bobby's paychecks.
No, which.
Thanks, oh, it's good to see one.
Yeah, I know,
Village paid stuff before.
What the state does is
What I
if
think.
you save up your sick days until you retire, you get that amount of days continuing on your health insurance. But in the last 20 years, there has been so many changes to the state benefits due to whatever person you wanna say in office. That if you're looking at it long term, it's not as much of a benefit anymore. Because you don't know if, say in the 15 years from now you retire, that rule will still be there. And then in the flip side, I have a friend who works for the state, has been working for the state for 10 years and makes $19 an hour. And yeah, great, well, he doesn't even need health insurance because he's a vet. So and there's no pay rate for if you're not taking.
right, I understand, but anyways, it's a benefit.
Right.
So, all right, I don't wanna spend too much more time because we're getting close to an hour and a half. This is a little longer than we usually, but. If you come up with something else, but I'm seeing there's at least 3 or 4 different objective. Ways that we can do it. I don't know, probably, I don't think next meeting, but maybe the May meeting, I'll just try to pull what was here and just throw it back at something to have a little bit more discussion on it.
I have had a strange amount of jobs for a person my age and probably have pay stubs at different pay amounts for.
Well, I'm sure you do, I'm just looking for, like I say, I've heard at
Yeah.
least 4 different.
Also,
Objective ways of coming up with salary.
is everyone salaried or is that
No, no.
there are salaries as well, because.
There, we count it all the same. Yes, there are some that are salary and some that are. But the raises, that really doesn't matter when we look at M. All right, so in this one, you also brought up that you thought we were deviating from the goal. So I'm just, can you explain where you're?
Because, as I said before, looking at the different job descriptions is not.
No, I'm thinking broader, you were saying our committee, this one I'm fine.
Yes, well, my question, there seems to be some research projects we've done, and I explained with these two how you could view them as not a finance committee. It's more of a procedure committee, would that be?
Well,
Do we change the
Policy?
name of our committee then to like finance and HR?
No, I want
I don't either. Oh.
Hey, look, I would, originally the leaf, if you think about it, the service of picking up leaves at the curb is not a finance. But the big part of making that feasible is finance, and I see that with these other two topics. You need finance to back these things, they're financial things.
But the way you wrote that up did not come off as a finance thing, it came off as more of a retention and.
No,
To me,
the top part is what they're using. I was looking at clearly objective numbers. And we came up with that, we met that, so I think it's very much in the finance. We have comparing salaries from other communities, having a set minimum raise, using job description and have a number tied to each of that. And Tim, you had one too, I'm just trying to think, using the third party gain county, which is kind of that. So those to me are all numbers and they're all objective. Could be turned into objective goals.
but looking at a person's job description and putting money onto it could also.
Sure.
Very easily argued an HR or.
Absolutely.
Thing, and that is not a finance thing. I mean, the first step I would do for that aspect is literally ask everybody to write down everything they.
We have good job descriptions.
You'd be shocked at what people do that you don't.
Oh, no, yeah, that's true. We can always, we try to get them to review
Yeah, just, it's a brainstorming exercise that everybody should do. Their job is, this is what I do in a week, and then.
them. All right, good enough. So let's go to future agenda items.
You look at, the capital expenditures.
What do you mean?
You mean
Like this year or future years or?
They won't be turned in until May, right? June is when
Okay.
oh,
What do you want to,
what do you,
yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I mean, I thought the first year we started, we got, put the capital budget items were looked at, talked about, discussing.
Yeah, and seeing where we could give recommendations of ways to that's how we came up with. The vehicles weren't being bid on, or we weren't getting quotes. Remember with the.
all right, so you wanna review the 2024 step?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then Michael, did you want your street signs for May?
For May?
Yeah, I have a whole month. Or something to get, for this election.
Yeah, all that. All right, anything else?
But then everything else.
All right, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I motion to adjourn.
All right, all right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same, so moved. And Tim, you'll be on April 1 to be.
Oh, okay.